Hey everybody, I'm John P. And since about mid-March of this year, I've been on this, I call it a miracle drug medication called low-dose naltrexone. It goes by the acronym of LDN, and it's pretty much saved me from a life of uh, being bound in a wheelchair. And I've been so impressed with the results I've had on this drug, and being able to keep my mobility, and being, remaining active in a productive lifestyle. That I just I've become such an advocate, even in this short period of time, for this medication, that I just feel I have to try and maybe try and help educate some other people about this medication and let them, draw their own conclusions about it, or maybe spark them to do their own research if they have an autoimmune disease like I had or have, because it works pretty well on a wide variety of autoimmune type diseases, not just mine own particular disease. Um, but I'll give you some background on me, how I came to discover LDN, and give you some resource information on to do your own research. And I recommend you do your own research on this, because LDN is a medication that's, the way I'm using it and the way it's going to be used for the treatment of an autoimmune disease. It's kind of like an off-label use of the medication, which means if you run to your doctor, your primary care doctor, and you say, I'm interested in this medication that might cure my autoimmune disease, he's gonna take the information about LDN. He's gonna look it up on his, either in his book or in his machine for on medication. He's gonna look it up under the FDA approved use of this medication, and he's gonna see it's like a treatment for heroin addicts and alcoholics and that kind of thing. And he's gonna say, what is this thing? I'm not going to prescribe this thing for you. You won't know anything about it, or the way it's being used for the treatment of this of autoimmune disease, which is in a much lower dose than the FDA approved amount, which is 50 milligrams. So um, that's a mistake I made when I first learned about LDN. I went right to my primary care doctor, and it was a total disaster. And but anyways, I'll give you some history on me quickly. I don't make this a long video, so I might make a series of videos to make it not so long. Yeah, in 2005, shortly after I retired, I had like a 30-year great career, and retired. I became pretty ill with really some bad nerve problems in my legs and feet, uh, neuropathy, and uh, especially in my feet. And obviously, I went to the doctor, and they said, "Well, you maybe have diabetes." So they tested me for all that. They repeatedly tested me for diabetes, and I didn't have diabetes. In fact, I still get tested for diabetes. I still don't have diabetes. I mean, I just don't have it. And they couldn't determine the cause of my neuropathy. And so I had that since 2005, and I still have it. It has never been really definitively determined why I have it. But I think it's again related to my autoimmune disease. But it's never been formally diagnosed. I went to neurologists and everything, but they just, you know, couldn't couldn't diagnose it either. Uh, uh, but after about a year and a half to 2 years after I got that, I started to develop bouts of leg and foot swelling in my legs, and I noticed the hair in my legs I lost all the hair in my legs, and um, they were just like smooth. I didn't have any hair in my legs, so that was another symptom and factor. Um, I had previously been diagnosed as being hypothyroid. I had hypothyroidism, which is a slow thyroid. Uh, Several years prior to that, and they put me on levothyroxine. I'm still on levothyroxine. So I had that. Um, and that was I went along like that with these symptoms for several years, and then in 2009 I was diagnosed with, they said, well, your thyroid disease has progressed to what they call Hashimoto's disease, which is definitely an autoimmune disease. So the thyroid doctor said, well, there's nothing, no, there's no really treatment for that. You just keep taking your levothyroxine, which is really not really a treatment for the disease. It's just really a hormone supplement, because basically my thyroid gland was basically being killed off. The autoimmune disease was attacking my thyroid, so it wasn't producing the right amount of thyroid hormones, and so they give you like a synthetic form of the hormone to replace what your thyroid's not producing normally. And but there was no treatment for the actual disease, Hashimoto's disease. But she just gave me, I remember she gave me just a pamphlet and say, this is what you got, and it's autoimmune disease. Just keep taking your levothyroxine. That's all you can do. So I went on along. That was in 2009. So I went along with that, and then 2011. 2010, 11, I got noticeably worse. I got increasingly worse. My legs started to become really weak over that time period, and I developed increasingly weakness, bilateral weakness in my legs, and the swelling was, kind of steady. And they put me on diuretics to control the swelling, but it really didn't work that well. In fact, I got put on two different types of diuretics, and my legs just became, really, really weak, and I just didn't know what was causing that. And I went to a chiropractor to see what was. They did say I had some minor spinal stenosis in my back, lower back, lumbar spine. So I thought maybe that might be causing some of the weakness in my legs. Went to a chiropractor, and he said, "Well, I think I'll send you to a spinal surgeon, take a look at the MRIs we got on this thing to see if the spinal stenosis could be causing your leg weakness. Have him look at the MRIs and see his opinion on that." And so in January of this year, I went to see this surgeon, and he gave me a really good physical as far as examining my legs, and noticed the swelling in my legs and the hairlessness of the legs. And said, well, he looked at the MRIs and said, well, I don't think, I think you got something else going on there. I don't think your stenosis is really causing the weakness in your legs, indicating to me that, it might have been, I seem to key on, symptoms of the hairlessness of my legs. So basically on that diagnosis or the examination, I went back and reviewed all the symptoms, the detailed symptoms. I should have done this earlier. I know it was probably my own fault, but I really did thorough research this time on my own of all the known symptoms of Hashimoto's thyroiditis, is what they call it, thyroiditis, or the autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's disease, to see all the different types of symptoms this disease can cause. You think it'd be just thyroid related, but it's not. It causes all sorts of problems, including nerve damage, and sure enough, some of the primary symptoms of that disease are bilateral leg swelling and foot swelling, and weakness in your legs, as well as the loss of hair in your legs. Classic, the symptoms that I had, but I just didn't recognize it at the time that was what was causing the leg weakness. And also, I don't know if you can see this, but my eyebrows are cut off at the ends. That's also a classic sign of Hashimoto's disease, which is so I had all the classic signs and symptoms of the autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And so I went back to the thyroid doctor, and she again told me, there's no treatment for this thing. You just got to take the thyroid hormone supplement, and that's it. That's all we have. You have to adjust the best you can. I didn't accept that. It had to be something else I could try, and so I started doing my own research on the internet, see what else I could find as far as not only just a specific treatment for Hashimoto's disease, but just to add autoimmune diseases in general. What are the treatment options out there? And so just by chance, I went and discovered I'll show you this thing, a series of videos by Joseph Wook, who's the son of a famous author, Herman Wook. I remember reading some of his novels, Winds of War, and some of the other ones. His father was a famous author, and well, he was stricken. Joseph Wook, his son, was stricken with a severe case of multiple sclerosis. And he on YouTube, he had like a series of three videos about a treatment for virtually all autoimmune diseases called low-dose naltrexone, also known as LDN, and how it's basically saved his life as far as his mobility and his ability to exist and live a fairly normal life, because he was like faced with total disability and all sorts of disastrous consequences as a result of his own particular autoimmune disease of multiple sclerosis. And that's the you can just do a Google search of Google LDN on YouTube, and you'll come up with these 3 videos by Joseph Wook. You can see him with a baseball cap there. That's the key. He always wears a baseball cap for those 3 videos. And so I watched all these 3, part 1, 2, and 3 of these videos, and man, that sounded very, very promising as far as, this drug might work for me in my particular autoimmune disease. Because I didn't have anything else. Doctors couldn't come up with anything else for me. But he talked about all the, difficulties with the drug as far as being off-label use of the drug, and, the doctors may be reluctant to prescribe it, and all the bases are covered on these videos. So this is a good starting point. If you want to do some research on it, I recommend that. Besides that, I read several books on it. I really got interested in this thing. So I read several books cover to cover on this. One of the better ones I read was Up a Creek with a Paddle, about another, the wife of by Mary Bradley. Her husband was stricken with MS, and she discovered LDN also, and how it helped her husband with his MS disease, multiple sclerosis, autoimmune disease. The neat thing about this book is she really gets into a lot of details about how this drug operates and works. In particular about this book is how it can improve on your most recent symptoms within the past year or so. And that's very, very key, because I had my most recent symptoms were the leg swelling and the leg weakness, which were really the most threatening symptoms for me as far as putting me out of commission, as far as my making me disabled. So I keyed in on that as far as reading this book, and she covered that pretty good in this book. The fact that LDN is not a miracle worker, but it has a potential to reverse some symptoms that you have that are most recent. And so when I read this book, I said, wow, if I'm going to consider this medication, I better pretty much act on it pretty quick. And so I read this book cover to cover, and it's very, very, very excellent. And as well as this one, a primary medical book. It's called The Promise of Low-Dose Naltrexone Therapy by Elaine Moore. It's a primary medical book for LDN, and it covers all sorts of what it can help with, including all the autoimmune diseases, as well as all these cancers that LDN can also treat very effectively. So it really it sounds very impressive medication. And so I did my research. I did my homework on this thing before I even went to the doctor. And so, what I did is I prepared all this, a little package for my primary care doctor. I didn't want to overwhelm him, but I did prepare a lot of the stuff that I presented to you today. But I didn't expect him to read all that. I just kind of highlighted the main points I wanted to cover with him. And When I got there, my worst fears came to fruition because what he did is he just looked it up in his book, saw that it was a treatment for like heroin addiction at the full FDA approved amount, and that's all he went by. That's all he was gonna go by. He made it clear he wasn't even gonna look at my stuff, didn't care to look at my stuff, and didn't care anything about this treatment at all, and didn't want to even hear about it. So I was like dead in the water with my primary care doctor. So I was just like really sunk and depressed over that because I kind of had an inkling that it might go like this because I was warned by my research that a lot of doctors, because it's an off-label use of the medication, they won't be receptive to it because of it's just not something that if they go strictly by what they have in the little manuals, they're just not gonna they're not gonna deviate. So and the problem with it is because the reason it's not accepted for off-label use, or they can't get any research done on it because it's such a cheap generic drug. The drug companies aren't interested in it. There's just no money to be made off of this drug because it's, I mean, like a 3-month supply of this drug costs like $80, as opposed to what a standard treatment for MS would cost. 1 month supply of a standard immunosuppressant drug for like an MS treatment would cost like $1,500 to like $2,000. They just the drug companies just, I'm afraid, are just profit oriented, and they're not that interested in LDN as a treatment, as a main treatment for, and yet it works, in my opinion, better than all those other ones. Go figure. I mean, it seems like there might be something wrong with our medical system if they're just strictly going by the profit potential of a drug, as opposed to how well it works. The only thing that seems to be you can say about LDN is the patients that try it love it because it works. And I'm a living example of that. But what can you do? So what happened to me is I was blown away by my primary care doctor. So I was fortunately, now one book, The Promise of LDN, low-dose naltrexone, they do list physicians, and 1 or 2 physicians in there that were listed as specialists in LDN therapy that you can contact, and I did contact one in Pennsylvania. And after making an appointment there and going through detailed examination by him and evaluation of my medical history, he did authorize me a tryout for LDN therapy in March. And lucky for me, I did this thing, because if I listened to my primary care doctor, I'm convinced I would be in a freaking wheelchair. I kid you not. I mean, I couldn't walk. And by the time January and February, I could not walk. I remember I went to an ATM machine where there was like, I got out of my car and I had to walk a short distance, and there were 2 or 3 other people in line. I just about collapsed. I could not stand more than 3 to 5 minutes before my legs felt like they were going to collapse. And in the stores, I was starting to use these electric carts to get around because I could not walk. My legs felt like they just, after about 3 to 5 minutes, they felt that I was going to collapse. The weakness in my legs got so bad. And in fact, I even bought a little go-kart, electric cart. I spent $800 in buying a cart on my own in January because I thought I was going to become disabled. I was that convinced I was headed for a wheelchair. That was before I started. Like I said, I'm lucky I took my own initiative and acted on this thing. And I found a doctor who was willing to give me a tryout with this thing. He evaluated and confirmed I did have a legitimate autoimmune disease, which is Hashimoto disease, one of the few that can be treated with this medication. And within a month and a half to 2 months, the weakness in my legs just like subsided and just went away. And it sounds like a miracle, but I can now go to the gym for up to 2 or 3 hours and do a full workout without any problem. I can walk for at least 2 to 3 miles without any problem. It sounds unbelievable, but it's the truth. And it's all because of this medication. And I started in time. Had I waited uh, much longer, I don't know if it would have been as effective. Like that one book I told you about, Mary Boyle's book, Up a Creek with a Paddle. She covers that if you it can reverse your symptoms up to about a year and a half uh, time frame. You got that short window. You can reverse symptoms, your most recent symptoms, and that was what happened to me. I caught it in time before it got any worse, or it was just too late. In other words, if you're in a wheelchair and you start LDN, it's probably going to be too late. You can't. It's not going to get you out of a wheelchair if you're already in a wheelchair. So if you're going to try this medication, you got to do your research and homework and act upon it as quickly as possible if you feel it's going to be the best avenue for you. I had no doubt. I had a chance that it was going to. I had a good feel that it was going to work for me, and it surely did. At least it has so far. And that's all I got for now. I just hope maybe this information will help some people out there that's when going through what I went through, and hopefully it'll help people before they wait too late, before they end up in a wheelchair. It's sad that when I hear about stories like that, when it doesn't need to happen like that. So, anyways, I hope this helps some people out there.